Looking forward to a dynamic match here, particularly in the midcourt from South Africa. We're hearing a lot about the speed and talent of these midcourt players. And great elevation from Tabi Mawabi.
Say, an ad aerial.
Yeah, she's got a vertical jump. Malusi looking for a feed towards Gamedi. And contact against Ellis. And so it'll be Mashoga. Put up the first and successful shot for South Africa.
That's a very confident take by Manzo Mashoga. She didn't choose to challenge it in the air. She just used the skill with the hand, single-handed take. A very confident start.
Megan Anderson, just her 11th cap, as Sherelle McMahon picks up the rebound, and Australia's reply. Good South African population in Perth, so they've done a pretty good job to get 2,500 to 3,000 people along to the stadium tonight, and a stepping call gives Australia possession. Comes across to Gilson.
Manage obstruction.
And Avellino's given it straight to Senecal.
That's very uncharacteristic of Nat Avellino. She's normally quite expert at threading it early in the match with some exciting feeds, but that was a little loose, a little light on.
And Malusi, light footwork on the sideline to keep that ball in. Malusi finds Mashoga.
I watched a training game last night at South Africa, playing almost a scrimmage internally with a couple of the Perth players filling in some holes, and it was evident then that Gamedi was introducing far more movement to her game than she has in the past, although at the start of this, they're using her as the target player and putting her on hold near the post where she's most effective.
Test number 35 is for Gamedi. South Africa just not quite the experience of this Australian squad in terms of average test caps. Coming in with 20.3 to Australia's 24.3. And it's with Australia with a fairly inexperienced centre wing defence, goal defence combination. 2, 2 and 6 caps for Vomberto, Gilson and Gerard. McMahon open.
Strong work from Monia Gerard then. She was incisive in driving through the midcourt and had good vision to the post, wasn't distracted by the lateral movement.
Avellino, nice move along the transverse line to free up some space off the centre pass.
There's a great deal of speed in the Australian shooting circle when you team up Anderson and McMahon, and that will really test both the South African circle defenders, who are probably more used to contesting the aerial approach to the post.
Good height for Fenter and Senecal, but the speed might be with Anderson and McMahon. The match will tell us as it unfolds.
Australian audiences may remember Alicia Senecal from her previous visit to Australia, although she was injured not long after she took the court with a knee injury on that occasion, but they would have seen a glimpse of her.
And the South African ball, like what we've seen so far from Malusi and Mawabi, they are quick.
I love them. They're also very cheeky, very bright. Great deal of charisma as well as excitement in their game plan. And you could tell in their warm-up they were so keen to get out there and rumble.
Well, anytime you get to represent your country for the first time, it's a thrill, and Simi Malusi is enjoying that privilege today as Gamedi brings the margin back to 1.
There was a brief moment of doubt over Tabi. She incurred an injury yesterday, and it was exaggerated a little last night in a training match, but fit as a fiddle by the look now.
McMahon. And she's yet to miss. Shot 81% last week against England, 82% across the 65 tests she's played, and that's about what she sits on in our National League as well.
Very solid, and even more impressive when you consider the workload that Sherelle puts out on court, and she has vice-captaincy responsibilities. Both Cox and McMahon were very steady in goals, but Neal and Anderson just a little underneath that. So they would like to push up into the 80s as well.
That was nearly the tip-in. Sure how you'd rate that. McMahon. Avellino. We'll have to go to our stats man, Todd Miller, to say whether we're in a play on. All right. Looked like it came off a goaler's hand, though. Yeah, a tap, not a shot. Okay. That's interesting. Almost never seen this. Look at what happened here. Touch from Gamedi. Well, fortunately for the umpires, they didn't have to make a call on it. 8-3 Australia. They've scored the last 4 to set up a 5-goal lead. But already in 5 minutes, South Africa have scored more in the first, well, the same in the first quarter as England did in 15 minutes.
South Africa are driving to their circle edge beautifully, but just the connection with the feed not happening. They just need to control it a little once they get down on the edge of the circle. But they're playing the centre passes nice and wide so they can use the speed and then drive Simi straight through to a good feeding position. It's just the finish that's lacking.
Berta off to Avellino, straight to McMahon, and there are the priceless hands of Nat Avellino.
With beautiful timing in the Australian forward line, swung nicely by Von Berto, who changed the angle so that she could pick up the second move from McMahon. So they really had good vision, good understanding. And you can see there Anderson working really hard in defence, and we mentioned earlier that there'd be a focus in the Australian line of a full court defence. So the forwards working down, pressure over the ball from Anderson and Avellino, and it forces the error.
Now off the hands of Dutoit, and it'll be Monia Gerard to take it. Gilsonen off to Anderson.
Again, Australia using the angles well to pick up the options, and the shooters providing plenty of movement for the feeders.
Senegal got the rebound, so see if they can break through this centre court defence of Australia. Fenta.
Contact wing defence, penalty
and contact against Gilsonen, so that might free things up for South Africa, looking for their 4th goal. They've been stuck on 3 for a couple of minutes now.
Von Berto, the only change to the Australian squad for this starting match, remembering that De Mills-Fellows was included in the test against England. And sadly for De Mills, passing away, her partner's mother has kept her out of contention for this, so our thoughts go to them. And we also understand Ali Broadbent probably won't appear, although named in the squad of 15, probably won't appear across this series. There's some concern over some soreness in the knee, a bit of ulceration to do with the knee, so they're just resting it and taking it easy.
Comedy, shoot over Liz Ellis, and a great rebound taken by Mashoga. Manzo Mashoga. 81st test for her, most experienced player out there.
Advantage offside in contact. Advantage obstruction.
Anderson.
Contact, goalkeeper, penalty pass or shot. Yes.
And attracting a bit of whistle is Alicia Seneca. 3 penalties in the first 8 minutes of play.
Breaking goal defence, free pass.
Shoga.
Obstruction, goal defence.
Obstruction against Gerard.
Gerard was the most costly for Australia against England. Mind you, she picked up a few intercepts and caused a lot of damage along the way, so you trade it off. I suspect she acquired more of them as the game went on towards the end of it, but it will be an area of the game she'd like to minimise.
South African viewers and rugby followers would be interested in the fact that Monia Gerard is the sister of Brumbies player Mark.
And that Mark Gerard is her sister. Let's balance that out.
Yeah, she's the one playing for Australia.
Yeah. She'd have us believe, too, that she won all the backyard brawls, too.
Contact, goal defence.
Contact against Gerard. And again, there's that elevation from Simi Malusi.
Advanced it in, penalty pass or shot under the post, deliberate.
Well, an advanced penalty against the Australians, setting up too close to the player taking the pass.
I couldn't hear what Mandy Nolan called, but it was to do with the taking of the penalty and the players nearby.
Goal keep.
McMahon. And 12-6.
Well, it's difficult to make the comparisons, but bearing in mind that England had only managed three goals by the end of the first quarter last week, it's an encouraging start for South Africa. And to be honest, they've really played down their ability. They've talked about lack of confidence and expecting Australia to win. And even some of their own press has discussed the demise of their performance. But
88% they're shooting in this first quarter, and that certainly helps.
I think it's a strong opening for them, and I think it's a little critical to talk about them slumping from world number 2 to world number 5. That comes with turnover of personnel. It's very much a developing nation.
Another great take from Malusi.
And great speed.
Mashoga off to Gamedi, who had to be awake to the pass. And this is a good first quarter from South Africa.
Great speed, great turn in the South African forward line, and even the cheeky offload beyond that play, showing their confidence.
Mashoga, turnover that she regrets.
Well, they'd be establishing a lineup. Their last outing against England, December of last year, had a different shooting combination. McGrath started with Mashoga for that match. Also quite different through the centre, Moster at centre, and they had Lana Krika at goal defence with Fenter behind at keeper. So significant changes to their lineup.
McMahon. Well, talking to Marlene Wagner yesterday about that England tour, it was a very unhappy tour in terms of its results and the way it was set up for them. They're much happier with what their schedule is here. They had bus travel nearly every day in that short England tour, and it was very difficult to get settled, to get to training, to feel like they were into the tour. But here, they're here in Perth for a few days. They'll be in Adelaide for a couple of days. Then they'll be in Melbourne for a couple of days. And they just think that the whole setup is much kinder to the touring side. We like to look after the visitors.
Oh, I hope so. We've certainly been looked after when the Aussie girls have toured South Africa, so let's hope that we can reciprocate. They do have quite a comfortable knowledge over here, though. You remember when they played in the Tri-Nation Series 2001, James Searle, who is currently the Australian assistant coach, was the coach of South Africa for that series. They were also familiar with Jill McIntosh, the former Australian coach, who's done some development work over there.
Gamedi, or Gerard, who's out of play. Well, the umpire called goal keep, but they all knew what she meant. That's the important thing. Gamedi. And 16-9.
Gamedi shooting at 86% was one of the top 3 shooters at Commonwealth Games and Worlds. Always one of the top shooters by volume and fairly consistently shoots high 80s.
Well, here's another stat to encourage South African watchers of this game. Your team has scored more in one quarter than England did in a half. England had only scored 8 goals by half-time.
Well, there's been some debate even within our commentary team about if we put England and South Africa out tonight, which we won't do.
No, but we should also...
That we probably would support a South African victory because England at the moment are significantly affected by injuries, couldn't start 5 players, but South Africa are at a good level.
McMahon.
McMahon the best on court shooting-wise with 9 from 9. Manzo 3 from 3, also 100%, but the volume not as good. Bomberto playing a smart first quarter. She's doing exactly what Natasha Chocolate did last week against England, being a wonderful link between the ends of the court, unobtrusive, yet slotting in well.
Anderson smiles at umpire Bronwyn Meek. Calls Benta going to lose her way, and it would have been a step if there'd been no whistle. That's a step and a hop and a drag.
South African forward line like to use a double play with their mid-quarters, so pass off and then drive and take the next ball, but Australia will read that quickly, and that was just stopped by Gilsonen.
South Africa into double figures. Gamedi 7 from 8.
Clever take by Evelina, who always had eyes to the post where her vice captain was anchored and got away the offload, and they've doubled the score.
Pretty high scoring first quarter as Australia rattles through its 20th. Still got 40 seconds left in the first.
Australian defence paying a good deal of respect to Gamedi, double playing her as the ball's approaching.
Shoga plays it across the circle. Bomberto offside. And the seconds, oh yeah, there's half a minute. They'll have time enough. And Gamedi, that range has been pretty good.
Big smile.
From KwaZulu. Anderson. Oh, great ball. It was too good for everybody.
floor possibly too clean. It came up awfully quick.
Well, a very entertaining first quarter, and although they might be 9 behind, I think South Africa will be quite pleased that they've got 11 on the board, well aware of what happened to England. And with Australia holding a 9-goal advantage. Ready for the start of the second quarter. A Challenge Stadium in Perth. First of 3 tests off to Adelaide and then Melbourne in this series. Committee is out. Lucy goes back and there's a foot race there, and Karen Venter, give her the honours there, and that sprint is the quickest over 7 metres. So can South Africa continue this fine form they've shown us so far? Gumedi is quickly taken, and they deliver well into a player with that height and that reach, and she's going to be a good avenue.
Just noticed she started to put some movement out on that first approach play and got a little lost on it. Obviously, while they're developing that side of the game, far more comfortable still on the hold. So they need to bear that in mind and use what she's effective at. The more you move them around when they're not used to it, the less accurate the shooter will become.
Lucy Mashoga, Gumedi. Oh,
good hold, great hold then. Really had herself closed off to the post.
And that is the other option, the bounce pass. You don't always have to go high to Gumedi. It's a nice option to exercise. McMahon shooting over Senecal, and Anderson there for the rebound.
Goalkeeper wait, goalkeeper out.
And Megan Anderson on 11 from 15. Shot 8 from 12 last week in limited time. Toy, Shoga, Gumedi.
Contact goalkeeper, penalty pass or shot. Did it goalkeeper? Yep.
And they're not missing when Liz Ellis gets in and under against Gumedi. Well, there's some shooters around the world who thinks Leaping Liz gets away with a little bit. Maybe not tonight. Bomberto to McMahon. Out it comes. So nice take with the left hand from Anderson, and a good finish to follow. It's the record building for Norma Plummer, not been all that long in the job. Australia having taken over from Jill McIntosh. Toy finds Mashoga.
Well, it's been an interesting 12 months for Norma Plummer. In the past year, Australia's incurred 5 ankle reconstructions, 3 withdrawals due to work or study, and as you pointed out last week, the joyous prospect of 2 pregnancies. So there's been a lot of turnover and replacement and exploration at the depth of the line. Just saw Norma, former Australian mid-quarter, on camera. And of course, Sherelle McMahon married a couple of weeks ago.
Anderson. And the lead up to 10. Early moments, second quarter, 3 minutes old. Anderson, Avellino.
Structure, wing defense, take your distance. Yep.
Just a minor caution there for Charlene du Toit, not retreating the 3-foot distance on the tape. She's been hovering around. And some players get away with that. If the receiver of the ball is so quick in offloading again, some of the defenders don't bother to retreat in the first place, but Nottingham onto that.
So du Toit runs it down.
Yes.
Mawabi. Mawabi with the right wrist strapped after a fall since arriving in Perth, but doesn't seem to be stopping her at all in this game. Obviously an important member of that mid-court with 28 internationals now. Shaped for the shot, gave the pass, and Gumedi. Avellino, oh, that's bounced all the way through to McMahon. Did Anderson pull out of that catch? That was too cheeky for words. That's just plain naughty.
Yeah, but by tonight it'll be a set
no,
move.
it came off the wing defence then, du Toit.
Well, She's just lucky her timing was good on the cross run through, or she would have worn it. But Australia really changing the patterns from the centre pass, mixing up who's on strike for the centre. That one played through the midline. The previous one played right to the sideline, really working the width of the court. So they're moving around the South African defence.
McMahon. 14 from 16 for Sherelle McMahon. 13 from 18 for Megan Anderson. Gomedi got 12 from 13. 92%. Setting up, she's got that great split. Anchors on the left foot.
And quite a good squeal.
Yeah.
That was her calling for the ball. She, again, had tried the movement, but got caught on the baseline. Still looks more comfortable when she just plays the hold.
I think the interesting thing about the African team, too, is the number of languages you might hear out there. Sotho, Xhosa, Zulu, Afrikaans, English.
Australia playing a closed circle then from the centre pass, dropping Megan Anderson back to be near the circle with McMahon, therefore giving the mid-court lots of room to bring it down and offsetting the defence pattern again. And again, you see the two shooters in the circle.
Avellino to the corner for Von Berta.
And Anderson, all that time was working to set up a screen to block a player off McMahon.
And they ended up giving it straight to Senecal. So Toy off to Fenter. Shoga comes down to help in the centre third, but stepping.
I think the stepping, it's caught South Africa a couple of times, and it can come down to not being used to the speed on the floor. They do play outside on a hard surface, often concrete, a lot of their netball, so put them on double-sprung floorboards against Australian speed, and it can catch them a couple of times.
Monia Gerard straight to McMahon and Anderson.
So the pattern changed again for Australia. You saw McMahon then on lead, driving out of the circle to take the long ball. So they've opened up the play again in the goal third.
Mashoga. I think Gilson's working out that Moabi's a pretty quick player to have to try and tag.
Yeah, Gilson more picking and choosing which lead she covers now and sagging sometimes.
What a great move from Tabi Moabi. There is definitely some energy in this centre wing attack combination.
Great feed into Gomedi then. Changed what they were doing. She put a lovely split on.
Anderson to McMahon.
Avellino rolled into a mess then, tried to put a hold on, but then decided, I think I'll just stay out of it. Senecal remains the most costly on court, 9 penalties against her. Monia Gerard, Australian counterpart in defence, is on 8.
Well kept in by Gilson, and a contact goes against Cindy Gomedi, who politely acknowledges the call from Bronwyn Meek. Bronwyn Meek and Mandy Nottingham looking after this game.
Beautiful cut and drive from Avellino to get herself onto the circle edge for the feed, and Australia just starting to open up.
14 the lead. It was 9 at quarter time.
Oh, beautiful play. First the roll from Avellino off Dutoy to give herself the move to the circle.
Well, Lucy Mashoga. Oh, good luck. And Gomedi crashes into the post. The ball really a little optimistic. That's born out of the frustration of the free-running, quick-scoring Australian effort in the last few minutes. McMahon.
You can hear there's a couple of Aussie supporters behind the Australian goal line, just delighted with every move, every breath made by the green and gold.
Oh, yeah, they say. Yeah, they're sitting with green and gold wigs on behind that Australian goal. And Australia scored 5 in a row, so time for a reply.
South Africa need to stick to their game plan and to what they can do well at this stage, rather than get carried away with matching Australia's speed and flair. They've just forgotten how good Gomedi is on hold, and she's retreated her position early. Back close to the post, she's very effective, and they need to stick to that.
Just want that penalty set exactly where Mandy Nottingham says, or is there a timeout? Timeout call. Okay, we've got Martha Mashoga in a little bit of trouble for South Africa at goal attack. And so an injury break, first of the match. We'd prefer if there were none, of course. But she's in a little bit of trouble with a right knee, and out comes physio Tumi Komani on the left knee. So Martha Mashoga, the players on court, the most capped, 81st international. It'll be an interesting Commonwealth Games when you stack up England, South Africa, Fiji. You know, I think Jamaica are probably a safe bet for third in world rankings at the moment. So they're looking to make ground, I suppose, on Jamaica.
Yes.
Try and sneak into the medal count. Mind you, that's not to say Jamaica can't beat New Zealand or Australia, because they've done that in the past. So change with Lizanne Helmand on at goal attack. And it's unfortunate for Martha Mashoga having to withdraw from the game with that knee injury. So Helmand just earning her 4th cap for South Africa.
Helmand covers the wing attack as well as another option for her in this South African side. Very athletic, very strong player.
And it's contact.
So, on the baseline, Helmand waits for the challenge from Gerard.
Quite a different
contact against Ellis off the ball. And I'll tell you what, Mandy Nottingham's not standing for any nonsense from Liz Ellis, who's given up her 7th penalty. Bronwyn Meek, I beg your pardon. Thank you.
3-second call, but players must release the ball within 3 seconds.
Offside, free pass.
Well read by South Africa, but the offside goes against their vice-captain du Toit and minimises the effectiveness. McMahon unperturbed puts up her 20th goal. She's shooting at 87%, so a great performance in goals by the Australian vice-captain.
Plenty of noise coming from the South African bench just to our left. It's Malusi to Fenta. Touch from Gerard, and it spills back to Anderson, and McMahon's open at the post. Senegal couldn't get back quickly enough, and 37-19.
South Africa caught very high then, and not expecting the speed from Gerard.
Oh, just a halt on the drive across the baseline from Anderson was enough to get rid of Fenta.
Well, that's called a short pass between the Australian shooters, but I don't know. I'll have to turn the nose up at that one.
Well, you could almost hear the discussion starting in the stands. It's like, oh, I don't know about that. Good. Normal Plummer taking it all in. Gilsonen, Bomberta. One of those wonderful centre court players that just glides across the surface. Easy mover.
Yeah, she's combining beautifully in this Australian 7.
Just under 3 minutes left, second quarter.
Footwork call, that relating to the grounded foot. Lizanne had leapt into the air to offload the ball, but then didn't find the mark and landed with the ball still in hand.
Gilsonen, Avellino. Anderson swings it back to a former New South Wales teammate. Avellino to be playing in Adelaide this coming season.
For the mighty Thunderbirds, and of course there's a Thunderbirds side in South Africa.
Ellis touched it off to Gilsonen. Oh, Senegal is just not awake to the opportunity there to maybe shut down the space. And Australia scored the last 4 and they've built a 20-goal lead now. A couple of minutes left in the second quarter, and maybe the speed of the game just starting to test South Africa. McMahon, maybe 2. I mean, I know the Australians train every day and train hard every day when they're in Australian camps, but this combination, Annie, also finding some rhythm for Australia. Quite different lineup to last week.
Yes, I think particularly in this second quarter, Australia really getting a feel for each other. There's plenty of options when the ball comes down court. You can see 2-3 movers on offer, and they're making the right choices when they're disposing of the ball.
2 waiting back on Gumedi, so that certainly left Helman.
Well, it was very close to the 3-second mark. Australia really are cherishing possession. As pretty as the play looks, they're making very few mistakes with the ball in the second quarter.
41-19. The Australians put their foot down in this second quarter. 21 goals to add to the 20 in the first. And not quite. Well, Anderson thought she had it. Contact on one-handed possession of Anderson.
I'm still laughing about the centre pass delivery. Avellino ran straight across the court to the pocket, almost as a decoy. And as she ran, she stuck her hand behind her and said, "Throw it to Von Berto." Oh. He was back that way. Getting a little cheeky, the Aussies.
And Gumedi. South Africa gets to 20, so it's a 9-goal quarter for them. Gumedi after 11 in the first. Not
making many mistakes when she has possession. That was the 15th shot. She's only missed 2, so she's at 88%.
Pockets open. Get it there. Ellis had eyes for it.
Just slow delivery, and you really can't afford the lack of speed on the ball against the Australian defenders because they're used to playing the fast ball.
So 42-20 at half-time, and so the lead. So they're back on court. Gee, it was a noisy half-time. I love the band, but it's hard to think. So away we go. We've got Australia sitting on a 22-goal lead. As both sevens get used to some new opponents. And Australia have Chatfield on at goal defence. Catherine Cox is on, and a very popular inclusion is the West Australian wing attack, Jess Shin. And for South Africa, Matila is on at goalkeeper. Mwabi is back from wing attack to centre, and on comes the captain, Marta Mosuali. Toy. Mosuali in the very noticeable white headband, and trains in a headband, plays in a headband. So it's her thing. Helman. Umberto left on at centre. So Jess Shin. Not too many Australian players coming from Western Australia in recent years. Before Jess Shin, we had to go all the way back to Sally Ironmonger, a fantastic goalkeeper who played, I know, with you in the '87 World Championships in Glasgow, Annie. And Sally often comes to internationals when they're played in Perth.
Yeah, of course, from a very strong sporting family here in Western Australia, the Ironmongers. John, of course, known even to Sydney audiences with the Sydney Swans. Jill McIntosh, of course, one of the favourites from Perth, former Australian centre, and of course former Australian coach. And a whole host of others. Western Australia has a history of producing some brilliant netballers and had a golden era.
Anderson. They're getting more of a game here in the first test against South Africa than she did against England last week. Catherine Cox on, playing a 43rd test. Averages 78% shooting in test matches. 86% though last week, and is probably in the best year of netball of her life, I think. She cannot be left out of this Australian 12 at the moment. Catherine Cox.
She's just developed such an awesome repertoire of weapons. I mean, she's beautiful when she's out on the move. She's got a great jump. And possibly the most accurate in the country at the moment. She's on lead, doing a lot of the work out of the circle. She's just popped back for the hold now.
Anderson and Catherine Cox. Noma Matiila is goalkeeper for this second half.
Again, you see Cox out taking the ball from down court play.
Senecal, who had the first half at goalkeeper for South Africa, was a late-ish inclusion in the squad. And Ari Stone couldn't make the trip. Senecal came in. Senecal, having had a nasty knee injury, I think, kept her out of the game for a full year. Ellis, Bomberto, Shin, strong take. Good use of the floor. Great touch.
South Africa forcing their own throw-in from playing the ball back onto Australia in an out-of-court position. So good tight marking around the circle edge.
Mawabi looking for Suwali. Backed up by Detoy.
And Gilson replies. Tit for tat.
Anderson. It's a little bit scrappy at the moment, but it's not unexpected when you look at the number of changes we've had since half-time.
Screen offered there by Anderson. Holds Matiila out from the high ball to Cox. And South Africa, a little experience then. Fenter staying behind Cox rather than shifting off so she could have a go at the high ball. A little flat-footed from behind. 4.5
minutes gone, and Todd, stats guru, we haven't had an addition to the score for South Africa, have we? No, yes, we have 2 goals.
2 goals through Helmand early.
Just haven't changed on the main scoreboard here. They've got some problems on the main scoreboard. It's absolutely stopped. They've still got 42, 23. It's 48. No, they're gradually catching up. The Australian side of the scoreboard is jammed at the half-time score.
Free pass outside the circle.
They're just harking back to that England effort last week. South Africa's already outscored the England total for the whole of the match. England just managed 21 goals against Australia last week.
England did seem better when they changed the personnel in goals, but overall just struggled to find their rhythm in the game. South Africa, far more impressive start, and that was impressive through 2 Australian defenders. Come the long hands of Cindy Gumedy.
Advantage obstruction, deliberate centre. Advantage deliberate obstruction.
Wasn't an easy ball to take, although there was some good deception on it. And I think that's what they were talking about in the break. It was difficult to understand, but I think Marlene Wagner saying she'd like to see a fake and then the delivery.
Oh, it's picked up by Wilson and loosen the disposal from Mawabi.
Contact wing defence, Cindy pass. Step aside the wing defence.
Shim. Cox, shoot over Fenter. Shin bypassed, and you're laughing, it's only just a legal take.
Mighty leap. It was a mighty leap. I think she was sagging a little, thinking it might go to Shin, but realised had to be a long leap to take the pass in the centre third, as is required by the rules. And another mighty leap at the other end from Chatfield.
Masuali making it a third. She got some air time, put her hand on that ball, stopped the Australian drive. Gilsonen, Chatfield. Good speed from Fonberto.
She's just having a little trouble freeing herself from Charlene Detoy, who's putting in some physical work on her. Working hard to block the first move, and it's becoming a little physical after that. So effective work from the South African wing defence.
Suwali instruction against Fonberto.
Australian defence paying a lot of attention to Cindy Gumedy.
No goal, not setting.
Not set properly, and Gumedy shoots a quizzical look at Mandy Nottingham on that side.
She looked unfamiliar with the call, didn't she? But there was a warning from Nottingham not to take the penalty until the defence was out of play. But Cindy persisted in taking the shot. It was then denied.
Sweet shot at the other end by Catherine Cox, who just sets up so confidently, even from distance. You can almost tell by how confidently and quickly she turns and looks to the post, whether even from good distance she's going to get it like that.
She's also following the shot in, whereas sometimes when she's hesitant and it's not going smoothly, she falls out of the shot.
30 the lead for Australia, who've scored the last 5. Helmand back. Moabi.
Good work from Liz Ellis then. She sagged off the double team on Gumedi, giving the effect that she was available, but only sagged so she could close it off again when the ball was released.
Helmand. Better shot from her. She's 3 from 6, Lizanne.
Quick play of the centre by Australia through the back door using Chatfield, so slight change of pattern.
Series last year, almost exactly 12 months ago, in South Africa, Australia won those 3 matches 64-41, 63-42 and 47-34 the third test. I'm sure South Africa would like to get to around 40 goals plus. Suala directing traffic. Touch from Ellis. Helmand, a smart handoff to Toy, back to Helmand. Sometimes looks a little chaotic, and in the end ineffective.
Well, South Africa playing a different style with the double defence than Australia would. If we had a goaler double defended, the other goaler would run hard across one of the defenders to draw them. But South African goal attack is playing away from them, so it's not changing the pattern. She really needs to take them on and see if she can split them.
Shin, hard ball to Von Berto. Here, catch that if you can. And there's some very quick hands around that Australian circle, resulting in another Catherine Cox goal. And she's 11 from 12.
Catherine really having things all her own way since she's come on. She's slotted in very quickly to the game.
Suali. And Helmand found a way around the baseline. Took the long route and got there.
Well, it was smarter work with the double defence. It was the fake to Gumedi and better positioning from Lassane.
Cox swings at the shin in the pocket. Anderson's open. Her opponent in Fenta had overrun her.
Good work by Shin, because Anderson then was really relying on her to let her know, do I keep driving or do you want me to stop? You tell me where they are and where the space is.
It was a tester for Moabi.
And just a little touch on the back in case the umpire didn't think it was. Or my back.
Yeah. Suali, a lot of enthusiasm she's brought to the second half.
Better work again, the 2 South African shooters forcing Australia to split.
South Africa.
Just a little misunderstanding about whose centre pass it was. South Africa's it is. And a trail by 30. 3.5 to go in the third. In front of a good crowd in Perth.
Advantage contact. Instruction centre, penalty pass.
It was kept in well by Fenton. A bit of a flurry for South Africa, looking for their third on the trot, and they get it.
Yeah, well played, Karen Fenta. Playing just the 19th test.
Hellman's lift the scoring rate. She's now 5 from 8 since replacing Mashoga. Mashoga left with 6 from 6.
Hellman at goal attack, I should say, not Fenta.
Contact, wing defence, penalty pass.
Suali. Helmand. Oh dear. Shin. Anderson. And Cox. Very nearly interrupted by Matila. And an inch perfect pass. Nice delay on the pass from Masuali.
Oh, great feed. Masuali reading that well and getting it to the target.
Gumedi 18 from 20. Mashoga was 6 from 6 when she had to leave the game with a knee injury. So yeah, I shot 100% against Australia.
Well, great hold from Lizzie Ellis, almost forcing the held ball. Instead, the ball goes against her for obstruction.
Suzanne Helmand. Sherelle McMahon, who's already played half a game, still warming up or cooling down, one of the two.
Warming down.
Yeah, that'll
Let's
do.
blend.
Warming down makes more sense than cooling up, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm going with it.
Helmand.
Well, Lisanne Helmand has really injected herself into this third quarter.
Sin O'Neill and Natasha Chocolate there also. They'll be hoping for a bit of court time.
Pattern with attempts and possession continues to see Australia dominate. Penalties, interestingly enough, fairly similar for both teams. Most costly for South Africa is Senecal on 10. Turnovers, as was noted at half-time, really a problem for South Africa, who have wasted far more possession than Australia.
A minute for South Africa to make this their highest scoring quarter so far.
That would have to go close to a close pass. There's got to be room for a third player to move between the hands of the receiver and the giver. Mighty skinny one in that case.
There's an interesting short pass call there in the game. Oh, well taken by Detoy. And South Africa with 12 goals in this quarter, 11 in the first, 9 in the second.
The intercept reply comes from Shin.
Be pleased that it was her that did
it. Yes. Sprinted down, I must get it back.
Made amends, and the coach wants to see that. Make the effort. If you've turned it over, work doubly hard to get it back.
Absolutely, and brilliant fast break play for Australia brings up their 60th.
60 to 32. Remains a high-scoring, free-flowing game. We've seen some good netball here from both teams. Helmand. Oh. Contact will go against Masuali, and that's all the action there'll be in the third. And so that's
emerging South Africa, and if Mon can just brush up on her Afrikaan,
yeah,
we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Well, then again, she could choose any one of 6 languages. She's just being lazy, really.
Yeah, a bit of Zulu and Xhosa by next week, please, Monica.
Immediately, South Africa come up with a turnover early in the fourth quarter, so they're going to go down dying, aren't they? A bit of passion in the camp.
Well, they've turned it over. Kath Cox to get the first of the last, and she does. Highest score by Australia against South Africa, 89 goals in June 1999. Almost hope they don't get that far. They're not likely to score almost 30 goals in the last quarter. Not on what we've seen so far from South Africa, who have given plenty of endeavour. Gumedi can't catch that. It's landed out of court after the miss from Lisanne Helmand. Gilsonen. So no further changes offered by Norma Plummer for the last quarter. So Chocolate and Sin O'Neill missing out on court time in this first test, but I'm sure we're going to see plenty of them in the next 2. Wednesday in Adelaide, Saturday afternoon in Melbourne. I hope you'll be able to watch those with us. Masuali, Gumedi. Oh, Masuali just had too much momentum behind that pass. She was travelling herself. Couldn't take enough off the delivery. Chatfield across to Ellis. Bianca Chatfield.
Advantage obstruction. Offside centre, free pass. Top of the circle. Advantage offside.
Commonwealth Games between World Championships, Annie, really regarded as the tournament that the nations want to do well at, and South Africa building towards that. You watched in Manchester 2002. What do you make of the progress from then till now?
Well, they've had such vast changes. I think the most progress has come through the mid-court, and I think too getting the blend of shooter to team up with Gumedi is a significant factor for them. Defensively, obviously they're still getting used to matching the speed of Australia and New Zealand. I think that remains an area they really need to work on across a few years. But you're right, the Commonwealth Games is a bit like the Golden Globes, giving an indication for the Oscar. And it is a very key factor 12 months out from the next World Championships. We've got to realise, too, both these nations with teams who will contest the World Youth Cup this year in July. That's another big event. And Australia away at the moment at Fort Lauderdale have had touches against New Zealand and England. A loss to New Zealand, but a win to England. And South Africa, too, will be getting a taste of Jamaica. So both countries will be watching the progress of their youth teams very carefully this year.
Looked like Bianca Chatfield was taking a centre pass there. She's in the centre circle, the big Australian goal defence, but it was a early pass.
Hurry up, go to Finn.
The other factor with World Youth is that we may well see some players from both these sides at World Youth step into Commonwealth Games by next year if their performance is up enough.
Advantage offside.
So, South Africa yet to add to their three-quarter time total. So it's just right up a little. Liz Ellis comes charging out. Australia's been doing this of late. Instead of slacking off in a last quarter, they've really put together 60 minutes of solid netball. I think maybe in just once or twice in the past they could have been accused of taking their foot off the gas, but not recently.
And there was a lack of understanding then in the South African attacking line, so the ball was floated, and that slow pace on it really plays into the hands of Lizzie Ellis.
Somewhat milked by Karen Fenter. That's right. When were the Oscars? A week ago. We had Golden Globes and Oscars in one episode. Gamedi. A welcome goal for South Africa after 5 from Australia. The start of this last quarter.
South Africa would have to be pleased with their scoring rate in this game. End of last year against England, they managed 37. Australia, of course, a step up from England, and they're already at 33. So they've been quite impressive in maintaining that attacking rate against the world number 2.
Advantage, great goal defence.
Oh, great ball. What a brilliant ball. It bypassed all, went straight into the hands of Cindy Gamedi.
And didn't she enjoy it, Shin?
Well, you know, her catching it was significant. It came with such speed, and there was a lot of distraction in front of her. It could easily have been a slight deflection or just misjudged. Brilliant work at both ends of the pass.
Helmand, Masuali, Moabi. Oh, that's close to a held ball too. Helmand takes the step in. Gamedi, good strong take, and the finish is there.
Well, it wasn't pretty, but it was well sorted against the Australian defence. You see here, Lasana opens the arm up like a bullet, straight through about 5 Australian defenders. Nearly took a couple of South African players out as well. But great vision.
Don't think the Australians were expecting that kind of pass. The toy. Moabi. Helmand.
Contact centre Australia. Penalty pass.
Go against Fomberto, who was a little too close to Masuali. So Martha.
That last pass by Hellman again contrasts how different she is as a goal attack to Mashoga, to Manzo. Manzo more subtle and stays on the fringe and light, quick little hands. And Lazan really enjoys the power game and the speed.
Shin, Anderson and Cox just too quick and slick for the defence. So the match has unfolded this way. A 20-goal first quarter for Australia to 11 from South Africa. Another 22 in the second and 9 from South Africa. And then 12 in the third quarter from South Africa. Their best effort of the game so far. Swally back
Contact goal attack.
to Fenter. In the centre third. So Fenter to take it to Helmand. Oh, Gilsonen stayed with it. Oh, instruction against Gilsonen, and the crowd didn't like the call from Bronwyn Meek. against Helmand, wasn't any?
I couldn't see. She pivoted, unless she lifted the landing foot subtly on the pivot.
Contact.
You can catch information about netball scene in Australia on our website, abc.net.au/netball, and our viewers in South Africa. Why don't you drop by there? It's easy to do these days, isn't it? Doesn't matter where you are, you can visit anyone's website.
Contact. Penalty pass.
Swali. Helmand.
They're just making slow progress, South Africa, across their attacking transverse, hesitating, looking to the parallel pass rather than down court.
Delicate balance from Gumedi.
They've been getting there eventually, but their progress halted by some strong Australian defence.
10-5 so far in the last quarter. First test, Australia, South Africa.
Obstruction centre, penalty pass. Out of the way, centre side and away.
Perth, one of the unsuccessful bidders for the next World Championships in 2007, but it may not be quite a done deal yet. There's still some discussion about whether Fiji will, after being the successful bidder, hold the next World Championships, and we're here there may be a decision or a revision of that next month, but it's still a couple of years away. I don't think Fiji are in too much trouble just yet. They've got plenty of time to get their house in order.
Yeah, too early to hit the panic button, and they are fairly exhaustive in revisiting and checking progress.
There was talk for a good while that Jamaica wouldn't have been ready for the last ones, but they got there, and we hope that Fiji can as well, even though I'm sure Perth netball fans would love it to be here.
On the ball centre.
Both umpires had something to say at the same time there, so eventually it's all understood.
Oh, that feed too slow. They could have picked up Gumedi then.
Contact wing defence, penalty pass South Africa.
Contact against Gilson. It's Mandy Nottingham on the far side, although I had her working both sides at one point of the game. It was clever. Bronwyn Meek on this line and shot now.
Contact
Two umpires from New Zealand.
penalty pass.
Gumedi up to 25 from 27. Good effort. .94 attempts for Australia, make it 95, and they've converted 73 of them. It's interesting that we're told it's an international pool of umpires, but the two umpires turned up in their New Zealand tracksuits, so we knew where they were from.
Can't trick us.
No. Oh, we banged on enough about that last week, I think. Gumedi.
Great offload. Half accidental, half intended. She really did look to the pocket, but was off balance, and the deception made good for her.
Unusual miss from Kath Cox, then draws the obstruction. Well taken by Matiila. 4:15 left in the match. Contact against Anderson. 5 penalties against her. Sherelle McMahon in half the game gave up no penalties at all. Cox just the one so far.
Another great ball into Cindy Gumedi, and again it comes from Lazan Hellman.
Pretty good discipline at wing defence from Detoy, who's only given up 4 penalties.
Thank you.
Getting towards the end of the match, and it might be time to pick your brain about who you think have been the standout players for both teams. I think Detoy's given a 100% effort out there. And
she's been tough. She's a tough competitor, and she's very quick. She put particularly a lot of work in on Jess Shin when she entered the game.
And a very fit player, Charlene Detoy, has covered a lot of ground on a dodgy left ankle too, I think.
I think I've drawn most excitement, to be honest, from the starting mid-court combination for the South Africans. I love seeing Tavi and Simi line up in the middle.
It's the extra support on the Detoy left ankle. And she did wander back up the court a little gingerly on it.
Well read, Chatfield. He normally sits a little further back in the Australian line, but relishing the opportunity to have a run.
Well, they just sliced their way through the defence up the court in pretty quick time. Lovely play, Australia.
It was well read by Chatfield, but how quick is the progress down court? Almost a reply from Fenton.
$75-40 and 2:26 to go as Norma Plummer admires, I'm sure, at times what her players can do. It's just a delight to watch when they get it right. There's one for you, Annie. Oh, no, just out of reach, wasn't it?
I think Nat von Berta has been impressive for Australia through this game. Quite consistent. Some great work in attack. Defensive half of the game has been good. Gilson, and again, has been solid.
Australia 75 from 100 attempts. I reckon that's 75%. What do you think, Annie?
Contact centre.
Let me think on it. There is a trend happening with the Australian shooters. McMahon and Cox consistently shooting 80 or up, but Neil and Anderson remaining in the 60s, irrespective of how long they're on court. And I guess that's an area, whilst other parts of their game are absolutely brilliant, an area they would really want to nudge up.
Chatfield had good front position off the rare miss from Cometti.
And Lizzie thinks, hold him up, hold him up.
Dutoy tests that left ankle again.
Obstruction, wing attack, Pindy pass.
Obstruction against Jess Shin.
Bonus obstruction.
Elman looking for an offload.
With the double fake and drive.
Yes.
Australia with the numbers and the fast break play. Oh, held up by an error from Kat Cox, misjudging the move from Anderson. Australia making it a little harder than they needed to there. But giving the crowd plenty of interest.
Cox. And Anderson. 4 in a row for Australia. Last 20 seconds of the game. Suali. Elman. And not quite, but Cometti just takes it out of the hands of Chatfield. This will be the last attempt, and it doesn't go. Oh, that's a shame for Cometti, but it's a 77-40 win for Australia.